Estrogen. If hormones had a social center, estrogen would be running it, mic in hand, reading the room, and adjusting the emotional lighting in real time. Although it's usually labeled a female hormone, all humans produce estrogen, and it plays a massive role in brain function, emotional processing, mood regulation, and overall vitality. It helps regulate the menstrual cycle, bone density, fat distribution, skin elasticity, cardiovascular health, and cognitive emotional balance. It's produced primarily by the ovaries, with backup production from the adrenal glands, testes, and even fat tissue, because estrogen believes in redundancy. When estrogen is balanced, you're emotionally fluent, socially magnetic, and inexplicably glowing, like you drink enough water and answer emails on time. When it's not, every feeling arrives in IMAX. You're crying at commercials, replaying conversations like courtroom evidence, and somehow both overstimulated and exhausted. Estrogen doesn't just heighten emotion. It turns your inner world into a Vegas sphere production you didn't buy tickets for, can't leave early, and are expected to deeply process anyway. Progesterone. If estrogen runs emotional production, progesterone is the hormone quietly assigned to crowd control. It works alongside estrogen to regulate the menstrual cycle, support pregnancy, and stabilize mood, essentially making sure not every feeling turns into a headline event. Progesterone also acts as a natural calming agent for the nervous system and plays a major role in sleep quality, anxiety reduction, and emotional regulation. It's produced primarily by the ovaries, with smaller amounts coming from the adrenal glands, always in the background, never asking for credit. When progesterone is high, your nervous system finally exhales. Thoughts slow down, emotions feel manageable, and it's like all the open mental tabs quietly close at once. When it's low, estrogen grabs the microphone again, and suddenly your chest is tight, your thoughts are racing, and your brain is hosting a 2 a.m. anxiety TED Talk you absolutely did not sign up for. Progesterone isn't flashy or exciting, but without it, everything else becomes louder, sharper, and significantly harder to tolerate. Testosterone. While progesterone calms the system, testosterone mobilizes it. It's responsible for muscle growth, bone density, libido, motivation, competitiveness, and confidence. Basically, the hormone that turns "I should" into "I already started." Testosterone plays a critical role in physical strength and assertiveness and is present in all genders, just typically at higher levels in males. It's produced mainly in the testes, with smaller amounts coming from the ovaries and adrenal glands, ensuring no one is completely exempt from its influence. When testosterone is balanced, you feel confident, motivated, and willing to take risks that actually make sense. Action feels natural, boundaries feel solid, and effort feels rewarded. When it's high, restraint becomes optional. Every interaction starts to feel like a dominance audition. Every disagreement feels personal, and suddenly you're debating strangers online like honor is on the line. Testosterone doesn't care if something is correct. It cares if you won. Cortisol. If testosterone prepares the body to act, cortisol prepares it to survive. Cortisol is produced by the adrenal glands and is the body's primary stress hormone, regulating blood sugar, blood pressure, inflammation, and energy levels during perceived threats or emergencies, which would be great if your brain could still tell the difference between danger and inconvenience. In short bursts, cortisol sharpens focus and gives you the energy to respond to real threats. In modern life, it's basically your internal manager firing off emails marked urgent about things that absolutely are not. Traffic, notifications, that one awkward sentence you said 3 years ago. When cortisol stays elevated, your body shifts into permanent survival mode, where rest feels unsafe, joy feels irresponsible, and relaxation starts to feel like a risk you can't afford. Chronic cortisol doesn't make you productive. It just turns your nervous system into a bunker that never gets the all clear. Insulin. If cortisol manages stress, insulin manages fuel. Insulin is produced by the pancreas, specifically the beta cells, and controls blood sugar by moving glucose into cells for energy, a process that quietly determines whether what you eat becomes usable fuel or a long-term storage project. It plays a central role in metabolism, weight regulation, and energy stability, despite rarely getting credit unless something goes wrong. When insulin is working properly, glucose moves where it's supposed to. Energy feels steady, and your body runs like a system that trusts itself. When it's not, sugar lingers, insulin keeps escalating, and your cells slowly stop responding, quietly switching into hoarding mode like they're preparing for a famine you were not informed about. Insulin resistance isn't dramatic or sudden. It's your cells gradually deciding they're done taking instructions and clocking out early. Thyroid hormones. While insulin determines fuel availability, thyroid hormones determine how fast everything burns. Your thyroid hormones are the thermostat of your entire existence. Thyroxine, T4, and triiodothyronine, T3, are produced by the thyroid gland and regulate metabolic rate, body temperature, heart rate, digestion, cognition, and overall energy, meaning they quietly control how fast you move, think, and exist, whether you've been consulted or not. When thyroid hormones are balanced, energy feels reliable and your body operates at a reasonable pace. When they're low, life feels like you're moving through molasses, thoughts lag, and even basic tasks feel suspiciously heavy. When they're high, your heart races while you're sitting perfectly still, and your nervous system feels permanently over-caffeinated. Thyroid issues rarely break things loudly. They just make everything run wrong. Energy disappears, focus slips, temperature regulation goes rogue, and somehow the advice is still, just exercise more, which is ambitious considering you barely have the energy to blink.
Adrenaline.
If thyroid hormones set the pace, adrenaline hits the gas. Hard. Produced by the adrenal medulla, adrenaline prepares the body for immediate action by increasing heart rate, blood pressure, and oxygen delivery, flooding the system with energy meant for short, life-or-death moments. It's the fight-or-flight hormone, which would be ideal if it weren't increasingly triggered by things like notifications and mild social friction. When adrenaline fires appropriately, it sharpens focus and gives you the burst of strength and speed needed to respond to real danger. When it fires constantly, every inconvenience gets upgraded to an emergency. Missed a call? Spike. Someone honked? Spike. Slightly weird tone in an email? Full physiological response. Adrenaline doesn't do nuance. It does now. And in a modern world that never fully shuts up, that turns your nervous system into a car permanently revving in neutral. Noradrenaline. If adrenaline triggers immediate action, noradrenaline, also known as norepinephrine, sustains alertness. It's produced both by the adrenal glands and by neurons in the nervous system and plays a key role in focus, vigilance, learning, memory, and long-term attention, essentially deciding whether your brain stays locked in or quietly checks out. Noradrenaline is what keeps you oriented to your environment once the initial adrenaline surge fades. When noradrenaline is balanced, you feel focused, aware, and mentally present without feeling wired. Attention holds, reactions are appropriate, and your brain feels sharp rather than frantic. When it's too high, you become hypervigilant, jumpy, and exhausted, scanning for problems that may or may not exist. When it's too low, everything feels foggy, motivation drops, and your thoughts lag like a video buffering in real time. Noradrenaline doesn't scream like adrenaline. It just stares intensely and decides whether you're engaged or gone.
Dopamine.
While noradrenaline keeps you engaged, dopamine decides what you pursue. Dopamine is produced in several regions of the brain and also by the adrenal glands, and it's involved in motivation, reward anticipation, learning, and habit formation. Contrary to popular belief, dopamine isn't about pleasure itself. It's about the promise of pleasure, pushing you toward whatever your brain thinks is worth chasing next. When dopamine is balanced, motivation feels purposeful and goals feel achievable. Effort leads somewhere, progress feels satisfying, and habits form around things that actually improve your life. When dopamine is overstimulated, chasing replaces finishing. Scrolling feels productive, starting feels better than completing, and one more becomes a permanent lifestyle. Dopamine doesn't care if the reward is meaningful, healthy, or even real. It just cares that it's next. Serotonin. If dopamine fuels pursuit, serotonin regulates stability. Serotonin is produced mostly in the gastrointestinal tract, with smaller amounts produced in the brain, and it plays a major role in mood regulation, emotional balance, digestion, impulse control, and sleep cycles, quietly determining whether life feels manageable or like a series of personal offenses. Serotonin is the hormone of emotional adult supervision. When it's stable, stress stays proportional, setbacks don't spiral, and your baseline mood isn't hanging by a thread. When it's low, everything feels personally offensive, mildly hopeless, and somehow exhausting even when nothing is technically wrong. Minor inconveniences start to feel like character flaws. Serotonin doesn't make you happy or euphoric. It just makes life feel manageable, which is honestly a luxury. Melatonin. While serotonin keeps things emotionally stable, melatonin decides when everything shuts down. Melatonin is produced by the pineal gland and regulates your circadian rhythm and sleep-wake cycle in response to light and darkness, a system that worked beautifully right up until we invented glowing rectangles. When melatonin is doing its job, sleep arrives naturally, and your body understands when it's time to power down. When it's disrupted, your brain suddenly becomes its most creative, anxious, and ambitious at exactly 11:47 p.m. Melatonin is quietly whispering, "Please go to sleep," while your phone blasts blue light directly into your soul, and your brain responds by planning a full personality overhaul. Melatonin is fragile, easily bullied, and consistently disrespected. Oxytocin. If melatonin restores the body, oxytocin connects people. Oxytocin is produced in the hypothalamus and released by the pituitary gland, and it plays a key role in bonding, trust, attachment, and social connection, especially through touch, intimacy, and emotional safety. It's the hormone that tells your nervous system, "You're safe here," which is a surprisingly rare message. When oxytocin is flowing, connection feels grounding, and relationships feel warm instead of draining. Hugs calm you, closeness feels easy, and people seem generally less suspicious. When oxytocin drops, intimacy starts to feel exhausting, everyone seems mildly untrustworthy, and emotional distance feels safer than connection. Oxytocin is the glue holding society together, and based on current conditions, it is severely underfunded. If you have thoughts, questions, or strong opinions, the comments are open. Suggestions for future videos are always welcome. Otherwise, the next explanation is already queued up.